Good afternoon, South Carolina. My name is Lester Brooks. I teach in the history department at Anne Arundel Community College in Arnold, Maryland.
My name is Susan Firestone. I'm a retired patent attorney from Fort Wayne, Indiana.
I'm Tim Moore from the Center for the Study of the American Constitution at the University of Wisconsin. It's great to be here with you.
Hello, my name's Gavin Mathis.
My name is Emily Gray.
My name is Georgia McCart.
And we're all students that go to Wilson Hall, and we are taught by Coach Tom O'Hare.
Okay, so let's get down to work. We have Unit 2, Question 2, as you well know. One founder claimed that representatives should, quote, refine and enlarge the public views by passing them through the medium of a chosen body of citizens whose wisdom may best discern the true interests of their country, unquote. Do you agree or disagree with this claim? What alternative systems of representation were considered by the founders? What alternative systems of representation, if any, should be considered in the 21st century? You may begin.
Although the founders took a liking to the argument that the common citizen was too passionate or not educated enough to make the best decisions for themselves, I believe that this was a tactic used by those who were currently in power to remain in power. While it may have been true that the common man was not as educated as those wishing to be representatives, and that the, quote, passions of the people, end quote, could have led to issues, we take issue to this claim that Madison makes in Federalist 10. Not because it was unwise or illogical, but because he has given these representatives the inherent power to control America. Although the citizens are meant to elect the representatives and checks and balances are in place to ensure an elite democracy, the power of his words and opinions still holds weight even today. And by expressing the belief that the common man, the people, are not capable of knowing, deciding, and acting on their own behalf on a large scale, fundamentally undermines the concept of America as a country for the people, by the people. I do, however, believe his claim had merit, given the circumstances of the time period, but I still believe that no matter the truth of the claim, it was un-American.
When we refer to a system of representation, the beginnings, the founding fathers also had alternate systems. As delegates at the Philadelphia Convention tried to find a system of representation that would be fair and acceptable to all states present, the debate between equal and proportional representation arose. James Madison's large state plan, or Virginia state plan, clashed with William Patterson's small state plan or New Jersey plan. The former preferred proportional, and then the latter preferred equal representation, which was more evident in the Articles of Confederation. Small states feared that proportional representation would overweigh them and they wouldn't have a voice, as the large states would overpower them. And the large states demanded proportional representation so it represents more accurately who America is as a whole. The debate over representation was one of more influential and important issues discussed at the convention, and it remained gridlocked until Washington created a group in charge of figuring out which would be the best for the country. They decided on the Great Compromise, which is bicameral legislation, the Senate, which is completely equal, and then the House of Representatives, which is completely proportional. So despite Madison being in favor of his Virginia plan, the House, which followed his preferred design of role of representatives, should play less of an influence by the common man, which was Patterson's goal.
Well, I believe that our current system of representation following the guidelines of the Great Compromise and the ratification of the electoral process for the Senate from the 17th Amendment are plausible, albeit in need of adjustment. I strongly believe that the supposed check of the Electoral College is outdated at best. As the founders discussed the Constitution and made concessions between Federalists and Anti-Federalists, I can trust that the Electoral College could have been a necessary system at the time. But now, in the 21st century, all arguments in favor of Electoral College are redundant. The common citizen is now educated. All citizens have access to media and now are able to follow a candidate in their campaign to become an informed voter. The technology now exists to accurately take and count the votes of every state. All issues that would have presented the valid argument in favor have been solved, and the arguments beyond these are simply un-American. The distribution of the Electoral College votes among the states, the goal finding a more clear winner, protecting small states against the abuses of power from large states. All these arguments make very little logical sense in the present. Currently, the people are not the ones deciding who our president is. It is a small group of people who truly hold all the power. The votes of so many citizens are being ignored by our current system, and this is unacceptable. The Electoral College is no more than a systematically corrupt process that offers no true benefits to the people in today's world.
Quite honestly, though, I disagree. I believe.
Okay.
No, we have time. We can
She called time.
Sorry.
Let's go to the Q&A right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who wants to jump in and start?
I will. I'd like to stay in the 18th century. Why anti-federalists looked at this argument, this kind of quote from Madison, and they didn't buy it. So what were the anti-federalists' criticism of this viewpoint on representation?
The Anti-Federalists believed that if we were to give a select group of people the power to decide our fate as a country, that it would become too centralized and the states would lose power and the individuals would lose power. And a lot of those sentiments are brought up in Brutus I as he argues against the Constitution. And but basically, in short, the Anti-Federalists were fearful that their states' rights and their individual rights would be overpowered by this select group of people.
And a lot of these fears stem from the fear that there would be a monarchy again that they just escaped from. And so they wanted to give the power and keep the power to themselves.
The Anti-Federalists' biggest fear, as was previously stated as well, is that why should someone from New York be kind of in charge of someone from Georgia? And so they believe that to have more of a confederation of states would be stronger together because they know what their problems are, not this other state who only cares about themselves.
Good. Thank you.
Susan?
Some people think that our House of Representatives is too small to actually reflect the views of the United States as a whole right now in the 21st century. Do you agree with this or disagree?
I currently believe that the House of Representatives has the correct number of people in it. And my beliefs come mainly from Aristotle's ideas of classical republicanism, about how we should elect a few great-minded people to help rule the many, because we were never built to be a full direct democracy, for we are too big. We were rather built around the idea of a democratic republic. And so while you could say I don't really have a disagreement with expanding it, I just believe it is at its perfect size right now, because once we get too many people in there, it is then more of like a war zone trying to figure out like who has the right idea. Rather, if we keep it to more of a smaller size, in which the number we have is still kind of big, but the less people we have in there, the more discussions that can have, rather than people disagreeing with what they should discuss. I believe with the size it is right now, things will actually happen.
And I actually have to disagree with my peer on this one. I believe that in the times of our founding, that a smaller group would have been necessary because we didn't have any forms of communication beyond writing letters and direct verbal communication. But now in present times, we have technology and we have media and many different ways for different people to become informed. And with that in place, I think that it is logical to say that with more people in the House, we would be more likely to represent the true feelings and ideals of the whole of America, because with so few people in the House and so such a great number of people in all of America, it is impossible to represent the ideas of every group of people.
I think I'd have to agree with Gavin on this one. I think if we had too many people in the House of Representatives, nothing would be achieved, as people would just keep arguing back and forth. And I think based on population, maybe like redistributing like the population to hear more voices like minorities, that could be up for debate. But I do think that there's a good amount in the House right now.
Thank you.
Let me ask this question. If you had a concern as an individual and your concerns weren't being met by Congress, or if you were part of a group and your concerns were not being met by Congress, what would you do then?
So well, I remember learning about something referring to constituent servancy. And that is like whenever they go to their congressman, their senator, even within the borders of their counties to get their things heard. I believe they can continue doing it, but whenever the congressman like just straight up doesn't listen to them or doesn't care enough to listen to them, first, you don't vote for them in the next upcoming election. That might affect some people, but that's when you get to the time of needing to protest, to bring lights of issues about what you believe needs to be heard. I think that is one of the strengths in our Constitution that is showed, is that within the First Amendment, we have the protection of our speech. And I believe that is another main way that we get people to hear us.
I think, especially in this younger generation, take it to the media. Media has a lot of influence on the government and things, your agendas now. And so that would be a good way to.
I agree with Georgia. This day and age, it is more accessible than ever before to reach people and to force our representatives to understand and acknowledge certain issues that we have today. And if a representative is not listening to their constituents, then I believe that there are ways to practically force them to listen through the media and through different types of outlets. Yes, like
I think just at the end of the day, there's power in numbers.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Madison absolutely thought local politicians, local representatives in states they were terrible. What were some of those things that caused Madison this concern about local representatives?
There was so much going on between the states in that time. They were putting up tariffs on each other. They had their own currency, for Pete's sakes. There was no US dollar. There was the Virginia nickel. There was no common currency. And they were they were essentially just like the Greek states before Persia. They were just fighting each other. They weren't prepared for that big Persia. And so Madison's fear was that they were just going to get taken back over by England.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now have feedback from the judges.
I'll start out. I'm kind of disappointed that we don't have a constitutional drum solo for us here, but
the dude that can actually play isn't with us.
Okay, all right. No, one of the things. Look, this has been fun. I honestly feel like I'm having a conversation, and that is fantastic. And a thoughtful conversation. The fact that, in your last response, the chaos of the Greek city-states and the currency and the tariffs, but this conversational style that you guys have and the use of evidence in the way you're arguing your points, I think is very, it's very refreshing and quite good. So I want to commend you on that. I think, you addressed the different representational schemes in play in your opening statement. Can you tell us really what you think about Madison? There's no, it's clear. He's un-American, I think you used the word. So I appreciate your style, but you know what? In the midst of that style, there's plenty of evidence and the use of evidence for us to consider. So I commend you for this, and thank you for spending this time with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed the fact that I didn't have to guess that you're answering the question. Did he answer the question? Yes, you did actually. And you told us exactly that you were going to do it. And then you went through and gave us your support. So that was nice. I like the fact that, that the whole idea with the common man wasn't that they were necessarily so afraid of the common man, but they just didn't want to give up power. It was certainly there. America for the people, by the people. It was a nice change in there. So I enjoyed it very much, especially when you talked about equal and proportional representation was a debate, and then they mentioned that they clashed, and they certainly do clash because they are almost exclusive of each other. So that was nice. I enjoyed our conversation, and wish you luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was clearly some thinking going on, just how you started out with the commoner and the whole idea of this distrust and individuals trying to remain in power. And so that showed a little bit of some sophistication there. And as has already been mentioned, your disagreement with James Madison. And then you went on to explain New Jersey and Virginia. And I like that one comment that a war zone, we could have a war zone. But I want to take it to this idea of what to do if your concerns aren't met. And you said certainly using the media. And that's brilliant. We've seen that currently, the use of the media, the First Amendment, don't vote for the person again. But there are some others that you might take a look at, right? If we go right back to the Declaration of Independence, that gives the people the right to rebel, okay, and stage a revolution if their government is not meeting their needs. If we even look at the Confederate States of America, their concerns weren't met. And so they took another form. And then certainly there have been all the protests that we've seen in the past, the modern civil rights movement. We could even go a few months ago, January 6th. So again, you might want to think in those terms, that going beyond the standard rules and procedures to address your concerns. But otherwise, good presentation, and enjoy talking with you, and good luck the rest of the way.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Judge Brooks, this is Tom O'Hare, their teacher. I'm a Dundalk Community College guy. Dundalk Community College, currently CCB Dundalk, I believe, and played soccer at Anne Arundel Community College in 1976.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah, I know Anne Arundel. Let me say one last thing. They called Madison un-American. Their teacher is a James Madison fellow.
I didn't.
They're going to have to answer for that.
Wow.
Fantastic.